The next algebraic topic I'm going to cover is quadratic equations. So what is a quadratic equation? Typically it's made up of three parts, and those parts are ax squared, bx, and c, and it's set equal to 0. So a, b, and c are known numbers. So a is the coefficient of this first little part of the expression, which will be x squared. B is the coefficient of x in the middle, and c is your constant. So it's just a number. It's not multiplied by anything. It's just that number. And x is your unknown variable, like in all the other equations. So this can be solved by factoring, but we're going to go over that in the factoring tutorial and not this one. Also, just wanted to note that quadratic equations will make a parabola on the graph. I'm not going to be doing graphing, but just thought that was of note. So one way to solve a quadratic equation is just simply by taking the square root of both sides. So certain equations can be solved by taking that square root. So in this quick little example, we have x squared equals 81, and then we just take the square root of both sides. So the square root of x squared is x, the square root of 81 is 9 or negative 9, and that will be our solution. X equals 9 or x equals negative 9. And typically, when you solve like this, there are two solutions, such as there is here. But I mean, there are some exceptions. If you're given something like x is greater than 0 or x is less than 0, well, if x is greater than 0, then of course x cannot equal negative 9, so that would be just 9 in that case. But unless you're given this expression, then yeah, typically there would be two solutions. The other way to solve for simple quadratics is using the quadratic formula. So the quadratic formula is x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. So the first thing to do when you see this is to remember the quadratic equation, which is just ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. And this is important because, of course, in this quadratic formula, we see letters like b, a, and c, and these will just be plugged in from the actual quadratic equation that you're given. So a is, of course, the first coefficient, b is the second one, or well, a is the one that has the x squared next to it, b is the coefficient of x, and c will be your constant. So in this example, you have x squared plus 5x plus 6 equals 0, and we could identify that the coefficient of the x squared variable is there. Well, there isn't one shown, but that just means it's 1. The coefficient of x by itself is 5, which means b is 5, and the constant value here at the end is 6. So plugging that into the quadratic formula, we have our b value of 5. Remember, x equals negative b first, so that would be negative 5, plus or minus the square root of b squared, which is 5 squared, minus 4 times a times c, a and c being 1 and 6 respectively, over 2a, which is 2, times 1, since 1 is equal to a, and then we'll get our solutions. So x equals negative 5 plus or minus the square root of 25 minus 24 over 2. Well, the square root in this equation is will actually be very easy because 25 minus 24 is just 1, and the square root of 1 is 1 or negative 1. And then once we get that, we could just plug into we could just solve the equation actually. And once again, there will be multiple solutions because we are both adding and subtracting to get solutions. So it'll be negative 5 plus 1, which is negative 4 over 2. So negative 2 is the solution. Negative 5 minus 1 is negative 6. So negative 6 over 2 is the solution. And we'll get negative 6 over 2 is negative 3, which is one of the solutions. And that's about it for our quadratics. Like, I just want to go over basic quadratics because they can get a little more complicated than some of these other topics, but these are the essentials to know for quadratics.